Welcome viewers, you are watching Hornbill TV. From rap battles to political battles, from protest chants to parliamentary power, Nepal is witnessing a generational earthquake. A 35-year-old Prime Minister, a cabinet dominated by leaders under 40, and a government born not in party offices but on the streets led by Gen Z. Let's take you inside Nepal's historic youth takeover, how a student-led protest movement toppled an old regime and gave rise to one of the youngest governments the world has ever seen so far in recent history, and unusually young by global standards. Nepal is no longer just a changing government, it is rewriting the rules of power. At the center of this transformation is Prime Minister Balinder Shah, also known as Balan Shah, who is just 35 years old, now the youngest Prime Minister in Nepal's history. A former rapper, engineer and mayor of Kathmandu, Balan represents a completely new political archetype, young, outsider and unapologetically anti-establishment. But this story doesn't begin with him, it begins with the streets. In September 2025, Nepal exploded into protests not led by politicians but by students, young professionals and digital natives. This was the Gen Z movement, a decentralized youth-led uprising against corruption, unemployment and even restrictions on social media. The protest turned deadly. Over 70 people were killed and thousands injured, but the movement did not stop. Instead, it did something rare in global politics. It toppled the government, forced the resignation of veteran leaders, and triggered fresh elections. And now we have a Gen Z-inspired government. The result, a landslide victory for Balan Shah and his party, powered by a generation that refused to be ignored. And what followed is unprecedented. A 15-member cabinet, majority under the age of 40, several first-timer ministers and Gen Z figures. This is not just a cabinet reshuffle, it is a generational reset. Where most ministers are in their 30s, with several even younger, at least 10 ministers are under 40. The cabinet includes young professionals, activists and first-time lawmakers. This is a cabinet that looks like the streets that elected it. Within hours of taking office, the new government made a bold move. Arrest of former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli linked to the crackdown on Gen Z protesters. The message was loud and clear. The old system will be held accountable. So across the globe, politics has long been dominated by leaders in their 60s, 70s and even 80s, alongside entrenched party dynasties and career politicians who span decades within the system. But Nepal has flipped that script, because what began as a Gen Z-driven protest movement has translated into real political power, led by a millennial Prime Minister and backed by a notably young cabinet. This is not just Nepal's story, it is a signal to the world, where youth are no longer waiting on the sidelines for power to be handed to them. They are stepping forward, organizing and taking it themselves. From hashtags to history, from protest to power, Nepal's new government is proof that when young voices unite, they do not just trend, they transform nations. A 35-year-old Prime Minister, a cabinet of under 40 leaders and a revolution led not just by ideology but by a generation. Nepal's message to the world is simple: the future of politics is not coming, it is already here. And it is young, and at the center of it all is a bold and ambitious blueprint, the Balan government's 100-point governance reform agenda. This is not just another policy document, it is a direct response to a crisis of trust, a system long criticized for corruption, inefficiency and political stagnation. Backed by a powerful youth mandate, the new government is attempting something few have dared, a complete overhaul of how governance works. From cracking down on corruption and digitizing public services, to depoliticizing institutions and streamlining bureaucracy, the reform agenda aims to redefine the very structure of the Nepali state. Here is a visual from Balendra Shah's oath-taking ceremony. Have a look.
Balendra Shah.
नेपालको सार्वभौम सत्ता र राजकीय सत्ता
नेपालको सार्वभौम सत्ता र राजकीय सत्ता
नेपाली जनतामा निहित रहेको
नेपाली जनतामा निहित रहेको
नेपालको संविधान प्रति
पूर्ण वफादार रही
सत्यनिष्ठापूर्वक प्रतिज्ञा गर्दै ईश्वर देश र जनताको नाममा शपथ लिन्छु कि प्रधानमन्त्री पदको जिम्मेवारी प्रचलित कानूनको पालना गरी मुलुक र जनताको भलो चिताई कसैको डर नमानी पक्षपात नगरी पूर्वाग्रह वा खराब भावना नलिई ईमानदारीका साथ गर्नेछु र आफ्नो कर्तव्य पालनको सिलसिलामा आफूलाई जानकारीमा आएको कुरा म पदमा बहाल रहँदा वा नरहँदा जुनसुकै अवस्थामा पनि प्रचलित कानूनको पालना गर्दा बाहेक अरू अवस्थामा कुनै किसिमबाट पनि प्रकट वा संकेत गर्ने छैन। धन्यवाद।
यसपछि नवनियुक्त सम्माननीय प्रधानमन्त्री ज्यूलाई आफ्नो आसनमा रही